Gather round, children, gather round. Are you all gathered? Good. Let's see how long you can stay that way. Today's tale takes us to Hackney, northeast London, in the long ago time of December 1981. And that is London in England and not the hamlet in Alpha Centauri. It was a cold, frost-bitten evening when a group of 4 boys aged around 12 and 13 decided to walk across Hackney Marsh. Snow still covered the ground, and before long the boys came across prints of an animal that they could not identify. Although I'm going to take a wild guess that none of these kids were professional hunters or trackers. But as daylight fled, the boys heard a growl close by. They shone their torches to see what they described as a giant, great, growling, hairy thing. Really painting a picture of words there. They said the creature stood on its hind legs about 7 feet tall. The terrified boys scattered, slipping in the snow as they ran. But they all survived to report the sighting to the police. Now, in most northerly and other parts of the world, it would be reasonable to assume that what the boys saw was in fact a bear. Except, of course, that Britain is an island on which there haven't been any wild bears for about 1,000 years. You'd think if one had escaped from a zoo or something, someone would know about it. I mean, you'd have to be pretty careless to lose track of a 7-foot omnivore. So, was this perhaps some kind of a demon or ghost bear? Perhaps not. Weeks earlier, 2 carcasses had been found in the nearby River Lee. They had been left rotting and decapitated, but nevertheless were identified as belonging to 2 bears. Police suspected they had come from a circus that had been in the area, but found no proof. But there is a reason that travelling circuses with animals are banned in many places now, including the UK. The treatment of animals can often be quite horrific. Nevertheless, because of that incident, police took the boys' report quite seriously, scouring the area with 50 officers and dogs, marksmen and a helicopter. The search lasted a couple of days, after which no sign of any unusual wildlife was found, and the marshes were declared safe. And yet, in 2012, over 30 years later, a woman walking by the river saw an animal larger than a person and covered in shaggy black fur. Before she ran, she managed to take photos of the beast, but zoologists would say that they were not clear enough to comment on. Now, after these photos were published in a local newspaper, the drummer of none other than the band Cooler Shaker came forward to say he believed the beast to have been none other than his own pet, Willow, a 5-foot Newfoundland dog. The woman who had taken the photos was, however, unconvinced. So, a large dog, or had 3 bears escaped the circus, only for one to rip the heads off the other 2 and then skin them? Had I mentioned that the bears had been skinned? Probably should have done. Now, as an urban legend, I'm going to have to score this a bit low. Maybe 3 hooks. Now, everything I've said did happen, but I think what the boys saw was exaggerated by their imaginations because of the bears found floating in the river earlier, and it probably was just a large dog. There are many wild animal stories in the UK, dating to before the 1970s, when there was little regulation to what could be kept on one's property. As long as you had the money, you could buy whatever animal you wanted. In 1976, an act was passed requiring licenses to keep exotic animals. So it was believed many were simply let loose into the wild. But a bear is a big animal. It would need to scavenge, eat, poop, and in such a densely populated area as well, you would expect a lot more sightings and physical evidence of it roaming around. It just seems very unlikely that a beast that size could have stayed hidden around London for 30 years. Of course, unlikely isn't impossible. And there is one other possible explanation. A ghost bear.